everyone, and welcome to episode 427 of the MTG Goldfish podcast. I'm Seth, probably better known as Saffron Olive, and we have the full crew here this week, kicking things off with the owner of MTG Goldfish, Richard. How you doing this fine Monday, Richard?
Good morning, Seth. Still in recovery mode.
Tell me about it. I finally, over the weekend, actually started to feel better. My voice still comes and goes a little bit, but man, finally, it was 10 days or almost 2 weeks. I was sick. Ridiculous. We got another co-host in Krim. Krim, how are you doing today?
Well, much like you, Seth, I got over whatever I had. And
nice.
Yeah, feeling better, except for feeling better just enough to be dealing with allergies.
Oh, yeah, I'm lucky. I don't really have allergies for the most part, so I get to dodge that at least, which is nice.
Don't worry, they randomly come when you get older.
Yeah, Tomer was telling me, I never had allergies, and then I, turned 30 or something, and now I'm dying from allergies. Oh, no.
Dude, legit, though. Sneezing all day long, and sniffling, and it's am I sick? And it's no, you're not sick. You just have allergies.
Well, colds and allergies aside, we got some exciting stuff to talk about today. We are right in the middle of March of the Machine spoilers. We got new card types. We have a ton of Mythic. We have a ton of stuff to talk about. So that's what we're doing today. We're talking March of the Machines. We're talking battles, everything about the new set. But before we get into it, a reminder that today's show is brought to you by Card Conduit. And Card Conduit, they are the easiest way to sell your Magic cards. If you're tired of all the hassles that go into buy listing your cards, Card Conduit lets you skip them. You don't got to do all the typing, spend all the time, do all the work. With their curated service, you can send in as many cards as you want with a buy list value of $1 or more and pay just a 5% service fee. And if you want to do a little work, you can use their sorted service where you list and sort your cards ahead of time and pay just a 2% fee. And no matter which one you choose, you're going to get a detailed report with the results and a fast payment once your order is processed. And you can even get another 10% off right now by heading over to cardconduit.com/mtggoldfish. Card Conduit, they're the easiest way to sell your Magic cards. So thank you to Card Conduit for supporting this show. And let's talk some March of the Machines. And before we get into battles, which is going to be our first big topic, I got to know what you guys think of the power level of this set overall. To me, this set seems ridiculous, over the top, super push, super everything. Am I overrating it? What do you guys think of just the general? Now we've seen a little more than half of the set, I think. What's the overall power level of this set looking like?
I think this set is it's actually way more powerful for creature based the way the current standard is when I think of tokens, so many things making tokens. So all this matters because even control decks now are playing silly amount of creatures, and that makes Convoke a way different mechanic this time around. Normally, in sets past, if I saw Convoke, all right, irrelevant to me. I will not have to worry about this because I'm not convoking with Etherling. So this set has a lot of play to it in battles now. Looking real interesting. I don't know, creatures matter. This set really shows that creatures matter, and this is, I guess, a kind of okay thing. I've never really liked winning with the traditional win conditions, so I'm excited to see how this goes. But the overall power of this set feels it's a tough read. I think it's okay. It's gonna be solid. It's gonna be solid.
What do you think, Richard?
Are we talking about Commander or Standard?
Standard. I am talking Standard.
Everything's getting Commander.
or yeah.
This will hinge on how powerful battles end up being. But I think the set's okay. I don't know that it's out of this world power crept. I don't know that it's mediocre. I think there's some cards that we'll see play, but I think it hinges on how good the battles will be. All the other they're most of the cards are Commander cards, right? Once you go CMC 4 to 6 or whatever, right? Maybe you got some role players in there, but they're not going to dominate Standard, right? So those are Commander cards. There are a lot, all those team up cards, Commander cards. I don't know, the Flip Praetors are pretty expensive.
Don't say that, Richard. Last time we said something was a Commander set, we got Modern Horizons. And then
I mean, I'm sure we'll get some role players here, right? But it's hard to dominate a format if you're like a 5-man. Well, that's not true at all, but okay. Well, I don't know. But I think it really depends on battles, right? If battles truly are revolutionary, you're actually going to upset some of our standard staples. But if they're not, then kind of our standard staples just keep on rolling. So,
well,
I don't know.
That's a perfect segue into battles. So we got to talk about battles. This is the thing that's going to determine the power level of this set. The thing that might change Magic. One of the things. Richard, in case people have missed the last week somehow, give us an example of a battle. What are these cards? How do they actually work? And then let's see if we think they're actually good.
All right. So battles are very easy to tell. They're now horizontal. So cards that are horizontal have the type battle, so it's a new type. So I'll give you Invasion of New Phyrexia. So the front side, they're double-sided, of course, right? So the front side is X, white, blue. Okay, here's the reminder text. As a siege enters, choose an opponent to protect it. You and others can attack it. When it's defeated, exile it, then cast it transformed. And the card text is, when Invasion of New Phyrexia enters the battlefield, create X 2/2 blue and white knight creature tokens with vigilance. And then the backside of it is, of course, Teferi. And Teferi, Akosa of Zalfir, 4 loyalty, draw +1, draw 2 cards, then discard 2 cards unless you discard a creature card. -2, you get an emblem with knights you control, get +1, +0, and have ward 1. -3, tap X creatures you control. When you do, shuffle target non-land permanent and opponent controls with mana value X or less into its owner's library. So, it's like you give your opponent a planeswalker with no abilities. The thing is a 6. I don't know what to even call it. Like the battle number.
Defense counters.
The defense number is 6, right?
Loyalty.
So,
got it.
So you give them this card. Well, you don't give it to them. You choose someone to defend this card. Everyone can attack it with creatures. If you have a spell that deals damage to any target, you can target it. So it's like a planeswalker, but they can't do anything about it, but they can block it to defend it. And then when it dies, you transform it into the backside, and then you get the thing. You cast the thing. So you cast the spell from exile, and then you do the thing. Now, you can see why this is very hard to evaluate. Is this good?
So, okay. So
Yes.
this one
Yes.
I think is good because the front side is good, right? Like if you think about what it costs to make X22 tokens, like it's this. Like, so even if you played it like a sorcery, the card is on curve, like a Finale of Glory or whatever, like a White Sun Zenith effect. Like that's what you'd pay for that effect. So I think the card's good based on that. I don't know though, Krim, like, is this, like, are you going to try to flip this? Like, this is what I'm stuck on with these battles. Because obviously the idea is you play the battle, and then you fight for the battle, and then you win the battle, and you get the backside of the battle. Are you going to do that? Like, are we going to do that? Or do you just play this like a sorcery that, I guess, sits on the battlefield, and you get the upside that maybe you, I don't know, bounce it back to your hand and reuse it or something? Like, how realistic is it to get Teferi out of this battle?
I mean, okay, specifically out of this battle, very easy. It's the Invasion of New Phyrexia, like for 5 mana, you're getting 3 2/2s, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think that like this isn't that big of an ask, considering that there's so many creatures in this format, between this, like, wedding announcement, like all that stuff, all the tokens that are running around. And I see the question. It's just like, legitimately, is it worth attacking this as opposed to attacking your opponent? Right. That's the biggest thing. And I don't know, a planeswalker, why wouldn't you want one? Right? Like it gives you something else to do in case there's a board wipe. It just gives you a different style of threat. There's versatility in it where, like, if in an aggro matchup, if this deck is meant to be aggressive, that's playing Invasion of New Phyrexia, and I know my opponent, I'm just trying to close the game, I'm not gonna swing into this. I'm just gonna swing into you. But if I know that the matchup is a grindy matchup, why wouldn't I want a planeswalker that accrues value, that just, like, this isn't a new axis to kind of like analyze cards on, but I do think that the versatility in it is nice. As you had mentioned, as long as the front half of it is good. Like, would I play this normally, regardless of the back half? The back half just gives you this versatile, different, like outlet to swing and attack and, like, add to the game. That, I think this is good. I think Teferi's good. I think this is just a Planeswalker on top of, like, something that already spawned a ton of tokens. I think this is probably one of the best battles.
You have to attack this, right? Like, if this was a sorcery that said, 2 and an X, make white knights with vigilance, you wouldn't be like, wow, I'm so excited to put this in my deck, right? It's serviceable, but you're banking on the upside of Teferi, right? Like, there's no way we'd be excited about this card, or would we? Like, would we really? It's a reasonable card, right? It's not overcosted, it's not undercosted, but we don't play, like, reasonable cards in Standard, right? We play, like, splashy bombs. So you really are counting the backside of Teferi if you play this, right?
I mean, I'm higher on the front side personally. Like, I don't know. Yeah, you're right. It's not, like, exciting, but if you're trying to build a token deck or a knight deck, I think it's a good card. Like, compare it to, I guess, Finale of Glory is the one I keep going back to, because it's literally the same, right? Sorcery speed, 2 mana, X/2/2 white soldier tokens with vigilance, and then if you guess it for 12 mana, they upgrade to angels. But, like, that wasn't an all-star in Standard, but it was a card that saw play in Standard. So I think the rate's good enough that the upside makes it worth it. Like, you're both right that the upside has to come into play, and there certainly is upside to the possibility of attacking and flipping the battle. So I think that's enough to make this one worth it. I think where it becomes sketchier is, like, what if the front side isn't okay? Like, what if the front side is overcosted? That's where I think the question becomes trickier. Like, let me give you this one. How about Invasion of Innistrad? So Invasion of Innistrad is a 4 mana black mythic battle. It has 5 defense counters. It has flash. When it comes into play, you get to give a creature -13, -13. And then if you manage to flip it, you make 2/2/2 black zombie creature tokens, and it's an enchantment, and you can pay 3 mana, including 1 black mana, exile a card from a graveyard. If it's a creature, you get a 2/2 black zombie. So 4 mana, even instant speed removal, that's not something that would traditionally be considered Standard playable, right? Like, that's kind of a couple of mana, probably above the going rate. Is this card good? Because this one, I think, really does depend on the backside. If you're never going to flip this, you wouldn't play this, right? Outside of, like, Blink shenanigans or Yarok shenanigans or something, like, you would never just play this as a removal spell in Standard, would you?
I mean, I could see, like, this getting some play if, like, Indestructible were, like, a problem, or, you know what I mean? Like, things that just need the -13/13, or if for some odd reason the backside really matters. And I don't know. I mean, this one's a hard read. I can't tell because, this is 4 mana. That is a lot. Also, why does this have flash and not the Invasion of New Phyrexia? I feel like that's the one to should have had a flash. But, like, this one I couldn't get a read on. I don't think this one's good. I think this one's kind of bad because I don't know.
The backside trash.
Yeah, the backside just isn't.
Do you want
enough.
the backside?
No, that's the thing. Like, this doesn't seem like a good thing for what it is. Like, if the loyalty or whatever the what is it, defense counters were lower, maybe if it were like 3, like you only had to sink 3 damage into this, then we're talking, right? Because what you look at these cards as, like, they potentially could have, like, the backside, it has pseudo suspend. I don't know. It's hard to, like, really read into these. Like, right now, I think this card is way too high of a defense counter or whatever for it to be good. To sink 5 damage into this, that's a lot.
But it's effectively smaller. So I think they're making up for it with the flash. Because you end of turn this, right? You remove whatever creature you're removing. And then when you untap, you can swing right into this. So it's a lot easier to flip due to that flash aspect. You definitely need the backside. Do you want this backside? Like, it's expensive. It's 3 mana, make a zombie, right? And you need a creature. So
you do get 2 zombies for free.
So you get 2 zombies when it flips, right?
Yeah.
But then to make more, but like we were just talking about the rate of Invasion of New Phyrexia versus like the rate of this thing. But the way I see it, it's like a Crim control deck, right? Where you don't have a finisher and you're just like firing off removal left and right. And this thing is good enough for a finisher. But I wouldn't be.
Wait,
But
how is for a finisher?
But how is Krim going to get the creatures? How is he going to remove 5 defense counters to get to the finisher without having creatures?
Then what is the purpose of this then? What is the purpose of this?
I mean,
card?
well, see, there is a difference though. Control this standard is tap out. Like I had mentioned, Wedding Announcement, Sheoldred, these are the control decks now. In this standard, you do need creatures. And as I said, Convoke is proving that creatures matter this time around. Even a control deck has to factor that in. So the days of just draw go have been, we've forgotten about draw go for quite some time now. And I think Magic wants it to be that way. So maybe this is a control card, but like how this, I can't imagine this being better than something like Invasion of Fiora. Or which is the sweeper attached to a siege, right? Enters the bat, or no, is that the one?
Yeah.
So Invasion, I'll give you Invasion of Fiora. 4 black. When it enters the battlefield, choose one or both. Destroy all legendary creatures. Destroy all non-legendary creatures. And it has 4 defense counters.
Right.
Hold on. I used 2 sites here. So I used Scryfall to read the rotated side. Then I use MTG Goldfish to read the vertical side. No one has the technology. No one has the technology to rotate the cards in real time here. Marchesa, Resolute Monarch, 3/6, legendary creature, human noble, menace, death touch. When it attacks, remove all counters from up to 1 permanent. That kills. That finishes a siege. At the beginning of your upkeep, if you haven't been dealt combat damage since your last turn, you draw a card and you lose 1 life.
This is a finisher, right? Like this is what I would want to control because why? It's a sweeper. On top of that, it has
you have to deal the 4 damage to the thing after you
right,
swipe the board.
But that is a low loyalty or defense counter, right? And in a format where even control decks do play creatures, right? I am now able to blow up. The one person, me, and a few others who are willing to be brave enough to play a Joda deck on the ladder are gonna get pantsed by this. But like legitimately, the low loyalty counter makes it viable. Because it's only 4 damage, right? We've seen 5, we've seen 6, and like this is right after a sweeper that could potentially leave your stuff because your tokens will live because you can destroy all legendary stuff. And yeah, like I like this. I like this in the current year of Control where even Control has creatures. You're able to choose which modes you want. And yeah, like this is a battle that I think is solid. I think this is way better than whatever. I mean, maybe the 4 mana, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe the 4 mana one's cracked. But like, I think this one feels better in what is a control deck than the one that you had mentioned.
So it's kind of funny. I think this card is actually one of the best battles too. But that's, for me, it's just because if I visualize this as a sorcery and ask myself, what would the sorcery cost? I think it would be the same price.
Yeah.
Like if they printed this wrath. Yeah, like if you had this wrath where you get to blow up everything, or maybe like build a Plague Wind if you're a legendary deck or whatever, like I think that would cost 6 mana at sorcery speed. So I assume this has, you think it'd be 5?
Crux of Fate, right? Dragons or non-dragons? Legendary,
sure.
This one you get to choose both though, if you want to. So it can be a hard sweeper is the upside.
Yeah.
So I think it's got to be good based on that. And then the backside is sweet. It's actually really sweet with battles and against planeswalkers because you can just remove all. That's something we should mention with battles. Like the most common way to defeat them is going to be attacking them or burning them. But if you remove all the counters from them, the battle flips. So like Marchesa attacks, removes all the counter from something. That just instantly can flip any battle regardless of how many counters are on it. So there's some interesting synergies there as well. So you would play this to finish the game in your control deck, Krim, or to be a Wrath in your control deck? Like, you're playing this to get to Marchesa, or okay, yeah.
Both. It's the flexibility, right? Like, and so when you think about that, then like, yeah, sure, the enchantment or the siege that gives -13/13, like that's cool and all, but like the backside just doesn't seem worth it to me, right? But the backside of this is Marchesa, which seems way better, and on top of that is a sweeper, a hard sweeper that is flexible. I think that's why I love this, because it can be like, if I'm sitting there with wedding announcement tokens and like, I don't know, Fable tokens and a Sheoldred, like, I'm flipping this next turn, right? I don't have to actually blow anything up.
You already won the game.
I mean, sure, but the thing here is you're piling on the advantage because in this format, you know that everything is kind of like together snowballs, right? I feel like there's no one card that just like auto wins the game except for maybe Fable. Fable's like the only thing that auto wins the game right now. But otherwise, you're doing this like kind of grind them out, and this card just furthers that out, right? Like you get to add on to your grinding ability, and what better to do that? Like what better to do that than a thing that could be a flexible board wipe as well?
So sorry, Richard. In general, you're playing a control deck. You sweep the board with this. You get to keep your Sheoldred. You're probably attacking the invasion to flip rather than hitting your opponent for 4. Is what 100%.
Yeah, like I want to, and that's the beauty of these battles so far is that there's the the versatility in them, right? Like I can choose to attack this if I want to. But if I, like, example, in the matchup where I know I need to grind you out, I'm definitely going to swing that. Like, if I know that I'm playing against a mono black deck and I have a free turn to hit something and you're at 20, I'm going to probably hit this and not you. Because in that game, I'm going to need every bit of advantage I'm going to get because we're going to be throwing removal spells back and forth. So all that battle
there's a lot of different strategies you could do with this, right? So Krim mentioned you're at 20. What if your opponent's at 8? It becomes a lot more interesting, right? Do you hit them for 4 or do you try to flip this? You can also partially hit this. Like you could hit this for 3, bring it down to 1, and send the rest of the damage at their face to not overcommit, right? Because if you hit this, flip Marchesa, and then they play their own Invasion of Fiora to wrath you, then you've committed too many resources to the board, right? So you have this flexibility to just lower the counters but not actually flip it. It's interesting. I don't know. It makes it really hard to judge because we don't know how we're gonna play with it. I will say that it is so snowbally, which I think is why I'm gonna hate this mechanic. Right? If your opponent is behind, you play one of these and you flip for free because your opponent missed the land drop. It's like getting Ragavan, right? Like you stumble for 1 second and your game is over. And I feel if these cards are playable, they like snowball super hard. You didn't put up a blocker. Like let's say you missed a creature, like you missed a 2-drop. Your opponent played a 2-drop, played a battle, played removal. Since you stumbled on your curve, you can no longer defend the battle. Then they flip the battle, and then now you're even more behind. And there's no amount of top decking that will get you back into this. So I don't know about the snowbally aspect.
A card that like something like Richard had just mentioned there is like Invasion of Tarkir, which is 1 in a red. When it enters the battlefield, reveal any number of dragon cards from your hand. When you do, it deals X plus 2 damage to any other target, where X is the number of cards revealed this way. Right? I think this is. It doesn't seem like much, but I think this is going to be a better invasion or siege than we give it credit for. Not enough people are talking about this. This could just be Shock 5, 6, 7, right? But like, I kind of like this. This is a 2 mana battle.
I mean, I think it's good if you're a dragon deck, right? Are you thinking outside of dragons, just playing it like a shock or whatever? Ooh.
Yeah, like just as a shock. Because again, this is still 2 damage going upstairs at a battle or wherever I need it to go, right? We are willing. So we play with fire. That's 1 mana, right? You get to scry, you deal 2 to the dome.
Yeah.
What if instead of a scry, I guarantee you that this is a 4/4 dragon?
Well, I mean, you got to remember, so play with fire, 1 mana instant speed, 2 damage scry. This is 2 mana sorcery speed. Your opponent gains a minimum of 5 life, and then you get a 4/4. Like, you're going to have to, like, there is a cost. There is a cost to getting the dragon out of the backside.
There is. Don't get me wrong, it's not free, and you're going to have to sink 5 damage in. But I think the nice thing is, I think it's low enough on the cost that you could just play it as an additional shock. Right?
It's close to Bone Crusher Giant.
Yeah. Like, think of it like as a Bone Crusher.
Weird sorcery speed Bone Crusher Giant. And then you have the same thing again, right? Like, it's 5 to flip. But if you flip, you get a dragon that's a 4/4, and then when it attacks, it deals 2. So if you flip and hit them back, then you net 1. But then you open yourself up to removal and whatever, right? But it's an interesting card. I think Prim is right. You might. Well, I don't. Are there shockable targets in standard?
Y'all, are y'all trying to actually sell me on a 2-mana sorcery speed shock? What world are we living? That's 2023.
Bone Crusher Giant.
That one
we thought Bone Crusher was bad because it was a shock, right? Like, with attached to a 4/3. And then months later, we all were crying for Bone Crusher to be banned. So, like, I don't know, man. Like, a shock, it's
plus
not
shock
just
has a lot
shock.
of value in this format because of battles. Again,
That's
right?
true.
So now there is a lot of upside to burn because you can burn your battles. So maybe shock with upside is worth it.
like-
I don't know. I'm not sure, but I see a world. I can see it plausible that we play this card. I can also see like what are you gonna do with 2 damage? Does nothing, right? Like, why are you wasting your time with this? So I can see that argument too.
So what would you guys think are the best of the battles? Do any of them actually stand out for you as the ones that are most likely? Give me one that we haven't talked about that you actually think is like likely to see competitive play.
Likely to see competitive play is one of the ones that we just talked about. Battle of New Phyrexia. Right, I think that one's definitely solid, but
Circle of Loyalty, Graham. Circle of Loyalty. The Knights are coming.
I know.
It's happening. Happening.
We were just ahead of our time. You see, we were just a whole 4
like
standard rotations ahead of our time. That's all. But I also think something that's very interesting is that look at Invasion of Telvada. That is a 3 and Orzhov, right? When it enters the battlefield, return target non-battle permanent card from a graveyard to the battlefield, right?
Mm-hmm.
That on its own is good. It brings back any permanent. So we're talking about any Fallen Fables, any Fallen Wedding Announcements, right? Anything like that. And then if you decide you want to flip it, creature tokens you control get +1/+0 and have lifelink. At the beginning of your end step, create a 1/1 white and black spirit creature token with flying. This is in colors that it definitely would love to reanimate a permanent. And has the ways, like, obviously do not destroy this with like, just like a, whatever, like a destroy like Void Ren, although Void Ren looking juicier than ever, just saying. I'm just saying, Void Ren just eats anything now, right? Outside of creature lands. So, but yeah, I think Invasion of Telvada, another one that looks pretty good. Invasion of Tarkir, as I told you, Invasion of Fiora, and Invasion of New Phyrexia. Those are the ones that I think are looking pretty damn good right now.
No love for Ikoria?
Which one's the
Ikoria
Ikoria one?
Green X, and then you can search your library or graveyard for a non-human creature card, X or less, put it on the battlefield, and then it becomes an 8/8 reach, and non-human creatures can deal damage as though they weren't blocked.
So everything becomes
just
a
a
Thorn
normal card?
Elemental?
Everything becomes a Thorn Elemental, and the front side is Finale of, what's the green finale called? Devastation, yeah. It's basically Finale of
how much mana is
Devastation.
it?
Double green
X.
and X. It's
Double green X,
Okay,
and it's
X,
6
okay.
defense. Like, isn't that just
Ooh,
on
6
rate?
defense?
So
Yeah,
then
you don't even need to flip it, though.
with an anthem? Yeah, okay, you know what? Hold on. That's also pretty good. I think that's... that backside, okay. Does that... The problem is, does that make mono green the truth? Right? Like, I don't think mono green needed an anthem. That's not what it needed.
I don't know if mono green has time to hit you. Like, the problem is, like, you're spending a turn. So 6 is a lot because it's a third of someone's life total. So you essentially take a turn off to, like, flip it, which makes it dicey. Like, the worst thing you can be doing is you can deal 5 damage to this battle, and then someone removes it.
Yeah.
Then you're like, wow, okay.
That's pretty painful.
Yeah, right?
This one I'm really high on for Modern because you can tutor up Vampire Hexmage, which seems like it could be a thing where you just like Mana Dork, turn 3 Hexmage, sack Hexmage, get the 8/8. Like, that seems realistic. But this is another one where the front side to me seems, for me, like, I really want the front side to be on curve. And I think we mentioned a lot of those already, but like Ikoria is another one where the front side, like, to me, that seems like the going rate. Krim mentioned the reanimation. If you want like some of the sneaky ones that we haven't really talked about, like Invasion of Zendikar, the one that's explosive vegetation, That seems like the going rate for the ramp spell. There's one, I don't see it on the list here. The Gruul one that's 2 mana ETB rummage and make a treasure. Like that seems just like a fine card that I would
Argamon or whatever.
Is it Argamon? Yeah. Like that's another one. Like you're filling the graveyard, you're getting your Trox in your graveyard, you're making a treasure. If that was a sorcery, it'd probably be 2 mana. So those are the ones I'm really high on. I'm still not fully convinced on how often I'm going to try to flip them, though. I'm still like, we're going to have to play with them. They're so unique that it's so hard to evaluate these cards the way we're trying to evaluate them. But I am a little skeptical that I'm like going to be like, oh, I'm playing mono green. I'd rather send 6 at this to try to make another creature that can still just get farewelled or still get killed, rather than like lowering your life total by a decent amount.
But these don't get farewelled. And on
That's
top of that,
true.
I think something to look at too is all these front sides, back sides, yada yada yada. That's obviously a factor, but also how low is the defense counter stuff? Like what is the lowest defense counter we've seen, right? And that's 4. We don't see anything lower than 4, right? There's nothing that's 3.
There was just one today that was 3. The White Thought Seas. Yeah.
Oh, then that's very good.
Yeah, this one, Invasion
the White
of
Thought Seas
Gabacan, 2 mana, 3 defense counters. ETB basically an elite spellbinder trigger. You look at your opponent's hand, exile something.
Wait,
they have to
2 mana to play.
2 mana, yeah. But they can still cast the card for a 2 mana tax. Exactly, elite spellbinder. And then it has 3 defense counters. The backside is you can sack it to give your creatures hexproof and indestructible until end of turn. And the beginning or end step, you put a +1/+1 counter on each creature that attacked this turn. So that card's
insane.
That's the lowest defense counters we've seen.
No, that card is absurd, dude. Hold on. On turn 2, you can jam this in your soldier's deck.
Yep.
This is amazing. Hold on. Invasion of Gobakan? Right? Is that the one?
Gobakan.
Yeah. Dude, no, this card's absurd. This is the lowest loyalty or defense loyalty. And on top of that, it flips and becomes a thing that just keeps on pumping your whole team, and then once the person has the sweeper, you can just give it hexproof indestructible. Now I'm seeing why Sunfall or whatever is existing, because this card is looking good. Hold on, this is like probably the best siege or battle.
Is it? So my question is like, how good is the front side? Like,
you're very good in the deck that's gonna go in.
Is it
very good?
Like,
we play. What's the 3/3 that does the thing, right? We play these
annoying processor.
But then you get a 3/3.
We play these. So here's the gross part, right? If your opponent stumbles, they are insanely dead to this card, right? Because you basically get to disrupt their curve even further by doing this thing, and then you crack in for flipping this, and then you have like super duper charged Luminarch Aspirant, and then you have defense too, right? If your opponent somehow recovers and tries to do something, your pumped creatures have a lot of defense here. So this will be a feels bad, I think. It gives you reason to play a 1-drop, right? You 1-drop, 2-drop, removal, flip.
It is
go to town.
Technically possible to flip on turn 2 with Delver. If you
You're right.
Oh, because we need more defense for Delver.
That's hilarious. Yeah, Delver is finally playable again.
I mean, it would be nice to have Azorius Delver. We never pair Delver with white, really.
No,
although sadly,
what are you talking about? Original Innistrad.
Oh, that's original.
With Rune Chanter's Pike.
Sadly, it doesn't help flip Delver, which is kind of a bit of a bummer. But yeah, I mean, that battle is interesting to me because it's one where I think it's mostly dependent on the backside. Like, it really is about flipping that one. But because it's only 3 defense counters, flipping it seems pretty practical. I still wonder if your opponent stumbles, do you want the pseudo Thoughtseize more than a Thalia, let's say, or a Harbin, or like, what is actually going to punish your opponent more if your opponent's stumbling? Like, you're not adding any pressure. Like, that's the only thing I imagine with Soldier is like, can you afford to not impact the battlefield on turn 2 if you're trying to play an aggro deck?
But they're the same, right? You're taxing essentially whatever is going to be the best card that you're worried about anyways in hand. So, that's like, true. And Thalia, like, in some situations, this is going to be better than Thalia, right? Because Thalia, let's say you go up against another Soldier's deck. Cool. I guess that doesn't really matter. But then but if I play this instead of Thalia, I've now taxed your Siege Veteran. I've taxed, whatever.
I honestly think, like, maybe you don't play it on turn 2. Like, maybe this is at its best on, like, turn 4. Like, you curve out, build your board, then you thought seize, like, the turn before you're worried about a farewell or something. Immediately flip it, immediately start growing your team, have your protection. So maybe, like, you get the best of both worlds that way if you, like, impact the board on turn 2 and flip this a couple turns later.
I mean, something I'm gonna be worried about if I'm playing this, though, is Temporal Lockdown has just simply gotten that much better. So... like, now you actually need to probably play this on 2 against a control deck, or Mardu deck, or any of the black-white decks, because Temporal Lockdown picks this off along with your whole board. So you may actually need to jam this on 2. And this is just, like, kind of essentially Thalia 5, 6, and 7 against those decks, right? So, I don't know. I think this is very good. This is a very good thing, and, like, seeing Monastery Mentor get reprinted has me absurdly hyped for the standard, because battles will trigger Monastery Mentor. Mentor in, like, a battle, probably one of the more flavorful, like, feel like dude, that's so cool, dude. I'm sorry, I'm so high on Monastery Mentor coming back into standard here. So
this set's definitely super flavorful. I will give it that for sure. I think it's powerful too, but boy, this set is oozing, like, iconic characters.
Yeah, and I mean, the team-ups are hilarious. Like, we just got Croxa and the Doggo, which kind of, like, doesn't really feel like them two combined, but whatever, I'll take it. Like, there's a lot in this set that I think maybe slept on, but, like, I'm talking about how many things that are playing well with battles here. Because between Monastery Mentor, Chrome Host Seed Shark, which is whenever... a 2 mana and a blue, flying 2/4, by the way. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, incubate X, where X is the mana value. Dude, there's a lot of things going on right now in what could be Jeskai, Esper tokens, anything like that. These battles actually trigger Mentor, Seed Shark. And in a format where incubate, a mechanic that's kind of just been, like, glossed over, and convoke in that same format, incubate is something that's going to help deal with sweepers, because now... when you sweep, you leave up your mana. You just make sure you commit just enough to then hatch the eggs, as we've been saying. So, like I don't know. This standard seems to play quite nicely with enchantments, artifacts, battles, all these non-creature things. And I think there's definitely a really good token deck just oozing, like ripe and waiting to take over this format. I don't know. Battles are playing real nice here. And the more I think about it, token producers. What's the blue-white one? New Battle on New Phyrexia?
Yeah, dude. Invasion and New Phyrexia.
Yeah, Invasion and New Phyrexia. Dude, there's so many things that can just go wide. And it, like, maybe this is, like, I'm not going to lie to you. Maybe this is the format where I just give up on pure, like, just draw go. And just go with, like, the tempo. Like, we have
tap out control.
Yeah, but, like, I'm not even talking about tap out control. I'm talking like tempo, protect the negotiators. We're talking Chrome Host Seed Shark, Monastery Mentor. Make disappear, like the pure tempo style, like plays. Right? Like, dude, you have that new six
playing
siege.
Monastery Mentor. Yeah. Whoa, shocker.
Dude, I know. Okay, that one.
Control
All right.
players like, I'm gonna play Delver. Whoa, it's so yeah. Out there.
This is me going out of my realm here. Okay,
Comes
I'm playing a Delver.
Zone, yeah.
I'm going to the combat step.
Do you think that
playing win cons? What is this? On turn 1. Wow.
I mean, I guess we should talk about some non-battles. I'm curious about that shark. Is that actually a good card, Krim? Like incubate. So incubate, upside dodge wrath. Downside is it's kind of like Shark Typhoon, but you have to pay 2 mana for each actual creature you want to make to actually turn your incubate into a creature to hatch the egg, so to speak. Like,
not a problem.
You don't think that's a problem?
What? This card grinds. Does this card not grind? I mean, like, I think this is grind. This is allowing you to. I can go consider, right? Cast a bunch of pointless, instance or whatever, or a few tempo, like make disappears, things like that. It feeds into potentially another make disappear to make you pay 4. So make disappear for 4 mana. I can now just make it so you have to pay 4, right? because 2 plus 2 to hatch, right?
Wait,
and then
4 mana mana leak make you pay 4 doesn't sound good though.
But the thing is, it sounds bad, but like in this situation, there's so many games where like, man, I really wish I had something to sack except for like the token maker.
I see.
So like,
it's fuel, I guess. Yeah, bodies on the battlefield.
It's bodies on the battlefield, and it also makes it so that I can just pay X. I could just, as I told you, commit just enough to be just annoying enough to where you do need to sweep now. And when you do, I've left myself with a bunch of eggs to hatch. So this gives you, in some ways, yes, it's bad that it's not immediately a creature, but that's also its upside. When we're looking at things like, Sunfall, the Black Siege that's also sweeping the board, right? Like, I don't know. I'm kind of liking this card. And it's 3 mana, 2/4 flying. Is that not a banger of a rate right there? Like, holy cow. That is
decent stats.
It's Shark Typhoon. Like, it's like an actual resolved Shark Typhoon. Like, not the BS cycling thing, right? Where you push the front-loaded cost onto the creatures, right? So it's a 3 mana, 2/4 flyer. It blocks. It's a respectable body. You get the tokens. And then if you cast 2 spells and pay the 4 mana to hatch them, that was essentially Shark Typhoon, like hard casted, right?
Right.
But you have the flexibility. I think you can sweep, like if you play this, you sweep the board, you get the egg, you have your win con right after. I think this card is actually insane. I think this is going to see a lot of play in Standard.
Interesting.
With Mentor, you now have, like, between this...
Like a Shark Typhoon for 3 mana, even if you have to spend the mana to crack it. Like, so what it doesn't allow you to do is, like, be super far behind, play Shark Typhoon, and then somehow stabilize. But if you are in a neutral or a head state, then this card is, like, insane, right?
I don't know. I'm, like, on the fence on it. Like, if you think about it, you're cast to Consider... You get a 1/1 incubate, and then you got to pay 2 mana to make a 1/1. You has to make disappear. You get a 2/2, then you're building you're making a bunch of grizzly bears, I guess, for a lot of mana. But is that actually effective?
How about you play Chrome Host Sea Shark, and then you play a 5 mana Planeswalker?
Okay,
right? Like it's not good if you're just firing off 1 mana spells. But like Shark Typhoon was not that crazy if you just fired off 1 mana spells.
Yeah,
right? But if you play 3, 4, 5 mana value spells, then it becomes very reasonable, right?
But also remember that people did just fire off 1 mana spells and get there and chip away with a 1/1.
Well, but you're not
right.
But you're not paying 2 to get the 1/1. Like that's the difference. Like you can get there with 1/1s for free, but 1/1s for 2 are not exactly the same.
In a world where there are battles now, and Planeswalkers, in Convoke, all of these creatures matter strategies, this is cracked.
I'll be interested to see. Incubate's another pretty unique mechanic. I think it is powerful. I don't know about Shark in specific.
You don't believe, like if your opponent played this, wouldn't you be like sweating to remove this like immediately? You would let them untap with this if you.
I mean,
let's say you had your Tragic Slip Siege thing. Would you fire it off on the Shark immediately, or you'd be like, nah, I'll just let them untap?
I mean, I guess my question is, you got Monastery Mentor, you got Third Path Iconoclast, you got a lot of things that just make tokens for free. Are those, like, would you rather play Shark than play Monastery Mentor? And I feel like I would just play Mentor and not have to spend 2 mana for my 1/1s and just do them for free.
But Mentor, once you sweep the board, you have dealt with Mentor.
That's true.
Right? Like, once you sweep the board with Shark, well, you only answered the Shark and not the eggs that it's going to hatch. So, like, one is, like, the early game aggression, and the other one is, like, to grind out and close out at a later point. Right? Yeah. So, and I could see them going in the same deck. Like, it's not like because I play this, I can't play the other. These are the same 2 cards that will benefit and, like, profit off of the same spells you're casting. So this could be, like, they will work together. And as I told you, like, Jeskai or Esper, like, being able to, like, Mentor, I get a 1/1 with prowess. Pretty sweet, right? Maybe now Jaya will finally get some play with also Jeskai Mentor. But then Mentor makes that 1/1 with prowess where I would then have to cast, like, 3 more spells into to get a 4/4. If I go Shark into Jaya, I have now made an Incubate 4 to a 4/4. Jaya +1, that's another 1/1 prowess. So now I have become this token deck, and that goes absurdly wide. And we're playing a few battles along the way because there's the 3-mana tentacle. I love that the only thing I remember it is the tentacle battle, but I don't actually know what it's called. But it's a 3-mana blue tentacle thingy, and it makes krakens, and it's got 4
two 1/1s. Invasion of Segovia, 3-mana, 4 defense counters, ETBs, 2/1/1 krakens with trample. Yes. And then the backside, a 3/3 that does convoke shenanigans.
Non-creature spells you cast have convoke. And at the beginning of your end step, untap up to 4 target creatures. Dude, there is a Jeskai blue-white X just token deck waiting to happen here. Urbrask's Forge, another token generator that slowly just keeps snowballing. So
yeah,
I played with Mardu just because Vron, and so I'm thinking there's got to be some solid go-wide token strategy somewhere, and especially when Standard's going to be at its most powerful. Because this is, remember everybody, there's this thing, I know we're all like overwhelmed with getting hit with sets every 30 seconds, but rotation is coming up. This is the last set before rotation, right?
Yes, I believe. Well, we got the Aftermath set, but I think this is the last full set. Yeah, I believe.
What is the Aftermath set?
It's like the add-on to March of the Machines. It comes out like a month after this one, like 50, 60 cards or something.
Splitting into 2 sets?
Sort of, yeah. So it's like a bonus set.
Wait, a round of ink. They couldn't fit enough ink on the cards.
Wait a minute. So we're going single set, 2-set block?
This is like, it's not a real set. Well, it's like a 50 card set that's in like 3 card packs or something. And it's going to be like 50 cards, but they're standard legal. And it's supposed to show like the aftermath of March of the Machine. But yeah, that comes out in May, I think.
Well then, for the most part, this is the last set before rotation. Dude, this is going to be when Standard's at its most powerful. There's so many things, and there's been so many things that makes tokens. Remember a card that got printed in, Midnight Hunt? Creature tokens get -X/-X?
Yeah, Bloodline Calling or something, yeah.
Maybe that's planted there for a reason. I'm just saying. Meat Hook Massacre plus that had to have been printed for a reason.
I'm excited to see Crim hyped about playing creatures. That's new. I don't remember any other spoiler season where Crim's been so hyped about putting creatures on the battlefield. But
are they really creatures though? They're like fake creatures.
Yeah, I guess.
They're tokens, so.
I guess that's true. All right, wow, we're already at 50 minutes. We should hit up a few other cards. Richard, what else do we have on our list that we want to get to today?
All right. Seth, you're frozen, by the way.
Oh, I'm frozen.
They call you Elsa.
So while you unfreeze yourself, Sword of Once and Future, 3 mana value. Artifact equipment. Equipped creature gets +2/+2 and has pro, blue, and black. When equipped creature deals combat damage to a player, surveil 2, then you may cast an instant or sorcery with mana value 2 or less from your graveyard without paying its mana cost. If that spell would be put in your graveyard, exile it, equip 2.
All right, here it is, everybody. Richard, if I can't
Snapcaster.
if I can't say this on the podcast, please censor it out. The card is ass.
What?
I know.
Wait.
I know. Okay.
It is bad, right? You like it, Seth?
You don't think it's good?
I think this. No. You've heard what I called it, so I'll only say it once because I don't want to have it bleeped out. But I do think it's the booty. I think it is Garbaggio with a capital G. Like, I think this is, you're only doing it for the colors at this point now, because this card, dude, okay, in the formats where I can cast Ponder, Brainstorm, sure. We're talking older formats, great. I'm talking standard, hell, I'll even throw in Pioneer Explorer. It's terrible, right? Like, and also, this plays more like this feels like a bunch of Izzet abilities minus the Surveil, but ever since the rewording, literally Grimflayer has Surveil. So that is no longer the Dimir mechanic. This plays like the Izzet. This plays like Izzet. It's Dreadhorde Arcanist plus Surveil.
Yeah, doesn't this just like turn any creature into a Dreadhorde Arcanist, which is a pretty powerful like creature, and then you get the upside of filling your graveyard too?
Except it was
Think
a 5
about
mana
this.
Dreadhorde Arcanist.
Exactly. The decks like Dreadhorde Arcanist and the decks that would want to play something like that would want to have the spells to benefit off that are just going to play Dreadhorde Arcanist and cheap threats. They don't want to spend 3 mana, do literally nothing, and then pay 2 mana on top of that to get blown out by a removal spell.
But isn't that like just a sword problem? Like, I feel like matches up against like Sword of Fire and Ice. I feel like ability for ability, the power level is similar. Like 2 damage, draw a card, surveil 2, recast a Thoughtseize, recast a Fatal Push, a Lightning Bolt. Like
we're talking 60. What 60 card format are we actually talking about here?
Okay, pick one.
But you would Stoneforge this thing in Modern?
I mean, like, I would say Surveil 2 is equivalent to draw a card, and recast my Thoughtseize, Fatal Push, Lightning Bolt is better than 2 damage.
It is like drawing a card, but it is actually not. Hi, Bear. And then on top of that, the second part has no, like, what am I going to do? Offensively cast God's Willing, I guess? I could do that, right? But, like, in older formats. But this is, like, I think this is for Stoneblade, right? I think the only deck that wants this is Stoneblade. Literally, that's it.
I feel like the issue of swords being slow is just like, I don't think swords are good anymore. I think like pick an ability that's busted and put it on something that costs 3 to cast and 2 to equip, and it's probably not going to work in 2023.
Think about the Pawblade deck. All right, so I played Pawblade in Standard, and that's Kemba, all that stuff. Now, if you ignore the Clown Fiesta where I accidentally attach the green-red Pro Sword to a creature with Dragon Wing Glider attached to it, you ignore that part. But outside of that, right, like, that green-red sword did work. And I think, like, as in, like, it was good when I connected with it. So the payoff was there.
It is fair that this needs a lot of spells, and decks that like equipment usually want a lot of creatures. I think that's a fair point. Like, are you going to have enough creatures to make the whole balance of this work? I think that makes sense. Like, if you're playing Pawblade, how many spells do you have in that deck? Probably not a huge number.
Yeah, none that are like, example, what am I going to do? Like the best case scenario is if for some odd reason I'm playing a Shock, right? Like play with fire.
And a Braid.
Hit you in the face.
Yeah.
Sure. That's about the best. That's like the ceiling, right? And then every other time it's just like, cool, I've Surveilled 2. Like, this really just reads like it has one ability. Surveil 1 and then Surveil 1, right? Because like that is what it is together.
It's good in Crib's fabled monetary mentor shark deck.
It's not good
right?
there.
Because you equip this. You get to crack, and then your spells which you have do more than the spell themselves, right? You get to trigger prowess after combat, and then you get to make more tokens out of them, right? But it's so narrow. Like, all the swords are like generalist swords, but this is mana value 2 or less sorceries or instants, so that narrows the use of this card dramatically, and is quite disappointing for Commander, right? Like 60 card formats, whatever, right? Like, swords have a very high bar to hit, but Commander, like, you can only play this in a very specific deck, and that's kind of crap, right? Like,
compared to the last sword, it does seem a lot worse for Commander. Like, draw 2 and make an extra land or whatever is a lot worse than that for a Commander deck.
I mean, would this be busted if it were value 3 or less? Because I think that 2 or less makes it way too narrow, right?
What if it was anything? What if it was just Snapcaster?
Well, I don't know about that. Well, wait. I mean, any instant or sorcery 3 or less. Yeah. Then I think,
No, not 3 or less. Just no mana value restriction.
Well, but then don't you just cast a Genesis Ultimatum for free or something? Like, you're not spending mana on this.
Oh, no. Sorry. You have to. Okay, it's anything, but you have to spend the mana to cast it.
Oh, okay. That'd be fine.
Oh. See, okay. I mean, I designed, like, so we did a thing in Commander, and I designed a blue-black sword, right? And it was essentially exiling off the top of the opponent's library, and then you may spend mana as though in any color to cast whatever you exile off the top 2 cards of their deck or whatever. That would have been cooler. That feels more Dimir. This legitimately feels like an Izzet sword. But I think in Commander, if you're talking about Commander, this is just going to be like this. The pro colors, the colors you get protection from, will carry it on its own. That's what you'll care about. Anything else is like, sure.
It can cast no mana value spells, right? Crushing Footfalls, Living End, that kind of stuff. I gotta ask you about this one Commander card. I gotta see if you're high on this, Richard, because as soon as I saw it, I thought of you. Realmbreaker, the Invasion Tree, 3-mana legendary artifact, pay 2, target opponent mills 3. You get to put a land card from that graveyard onto the battlefield tapped under your control, and then you can pay 10, sack it, tutor up any number of Praetors, put them on the battlefield. How good is this as ramp for decks that don't get land ramp? Like, so it is 3 to cast, 2 for the first activation, but once it's on the battlefield, it's essentially pay 2 to ramp it growth repeatedly every turn from your opponent's graveyard. Like, is this a good ramp spell for mono blue or like some of the colors that don't get green ramp?
What?
This is S, right?
You can
play it on 3 so it is 5 mana, right? But you can play it on 3, and then on 2 you ramp, on 4 you ramp for 2 mana, and then 5 you just ramp forever.
Wait, what color is this?
This is actually one of the best.
It's
ramp
an
spells.
artifact. It's colorless.
Oh, it's that thingy. Okay.
Yeah, the World Tree artifact thing.
And then I guess you could somehow use that 10 ability, but
it's an auto include, right?
So you mill. So you need to. So they need to have fetch lands.
Fetch lands make it easiest. Or, well, I mean, you mill 3, so hopefully you hit a land among those 3. But yeah, a fetch land guarantees it. Although it is worded so if a land that you
the
plan
big
to play,
problem is when they die, you lose your lands.
That is true,
right? So this is not like true ramp. Well, it's pretty good, darn good ramp, right? Because it'll like live through a wrath.
Yep.
But
if the player dies,
the opponent dies, you lose your lands, which is a big deal.
Is
right?
this, hold on, wait a minute.
You be going losing half your mana like halfway through the game, right?
You're also sinking 2 mana. So really,
but that's rampant growth.
If
I gave you the ability to rampant growth every turn,
rampant
you
growth.
would like totally take that, right?
But it's not rampant growth because it's 5 mana for the first. It's sunken into it. It's 5 mana.
So like if there was if you could pay 3 mana for an emblem that allowed you to rampant growth every turn, I would take that.
I
mean,
especially in like non-green colors. So I think this is really strong, except for the fact that your lands disappear when that player dies.
You want to know something funny? I would play this, but not for the reasons you think.
You're trying to actually trying to put Praetors into play. I mean, the other thing is that mode is pretty attainable. Oh no! Oh no! 5 mana mill.
That's a good rate.
So bad.
That's a good rate.
It makes the sword better. You can sword of body by to ensure you get the lands, right? And
oh my god, dude!
You get utility lands. Like you can get someone's coffers or something.
Yeah, you can hit non-basics, which is sweet. You can't keep getting the same fetch, which I guess is probably to keep the power level in check, since if the lands leave play, they get exiled, so you can't just snipe the same fetch again and again. But I think it's a staple, right? I would play that in on pretty much any non-green deck, I think. And then like 10
the hypermetric, Seth. Three cards. What's the percentage of hitting a land?
Ooh, all right, 3. We'll look that up real quick. Also, 10 colorless.
Against Seth, like 0% because he has like 90% MDFCs.
10,
that's right.
MDFCs do work against it. That's true. Also, 10 colorless to get Praetors doesn't seem bad. Like 10 mana, even if you're not doing full on meme stuff, like 10 mana, I get my Elish Norn or whatever, tutor it out onto the battlefield once you already have enough lands, or 10 mana to get my Shieldred or Vorinclex. Even if you're getting a Praetor or 2 Praetors even, like that's totally worth it. 100 card deck, you're playing, let's say 38 lands that are hits. You mill 3, your odds of hitting at least one is 76%.
I'll take it.
That's pretty good.
Seth, I would like to say...
you could also hedge your... So either you could go all in and try to find a lieutenant and take all their lands, or you could try to take one from everyone. So as the game progresses, you slowly lose lands. But,
and there is...
I think this is really good.
And there's some like mill stuff. Like you could also play some card that like just puts cards in everyone's graveyard to help the process too.
I mean, I'm like playing this in my commander decks because it mills and it steals. And nothing makes people more upset than that. So like I love that. Second off, Seth, I love that you skipped right to Commander with this card. But do you remember the boy? He got completed. Him and Vraska are off on a date somewhere because no one knows what happened to him lore-wise, I guess. Or I don't, at least. Jace.
Ooh,
Jace has been good. I genuinely have enjoyed Jace in control decks, and he has been solid. And I've won more games than you would think because the Atraxa deck just go wild. They just mill themselves 1,000 times into the sun. And then all of a sudden they get real sad when you hit them with a 15 mil. But we're talking, it's not in full effect yet, but just remember, there is a Jace that is very good for mill. And this staff could go in there. I'm just saying.
I mean,
just saying.
I've played some Jace mill too, and Jace is really good. The problem is there's not a lot of other good mill spells in Standard to build like a dedicated mill deck. Like Jace can get it done by himself, but there's not too many good like support mill cards. This actually might be one of the best ones, even though it doesn't read like a super good mill card on rate, but it might be one of the best ones. I will do the Praetor thing in Standard too. Like 10 colorless, that ain't nothing. Like we can get to that pretty easily. Compared to even the real world tree, this feels way easier to pull off because you don't need 2 mana of each color. So I feel like it adds lands to the battlefield that'll help pay for it eventually. So maybe the card's just good.
I think the card might actually just be pretty solid in like a 60 like card if there's a mill deck. But one last thing, talking about just solid cards. I know that we're running long.
Mm-hmm.
Polukranos Reborn. I'm about to talk about our green card. This card is a green, reach 4/5. 6 and a Phyrexian white, transform it, and then its backside becomes Polukranos Engine of Ruin. Reach, lifelink 6/6. Polukranos Engine of Ruin or another non-token Hydra you control dies. Create a 3/3 green and white Hydra token with reach, and a 3/3 green and white Phyrexian Hydra token with lifelink. This
basically
is
Wormcoil backside.
Right. Wormcoil, like pseudo Wormcoil on the backside, really cool art, but holy hell, the front side. That is a 4/5 for 3 mana with reach. And this is the reason why I asked this is because all these abilities, these absurd costs, right, you're seeing here, and all these activated abilities. Is Karn Living Legacy now the truth? Do Power Stones matter?
No. I
thought
you were heading towards Green Devotion or like is Green good now and Crim goes right to Power Stones. Yes,
I'm sure these Power Stones will help you casting your triple green Polukranos, right?
Okay, maybe they aren't. Maybe they aren't.
Yeah.
Like and the Praetors. We didn't even get to talk about the Praetors. Really, like, just straight up Elish Norn, Sheoldred, and her busted ass abilities. All these cards are activated. There are so many activated abilities in this set.
There are.
I joke with Karn, sorta. But are Power Stones finally relevant? Because we are now at a critical mass of activated abilities. That is something that we all laughed at, for a while, so.
Yeah. I mean, I think you're right-ish. Like, I think Power Stones get a lot better. I still think Karn is, like, one of the not great ways to make Power Stone, but, like, Might Stone and Weak Stone, or, like, the card draw one that leaves behind a couple of Power Stones, like, those do seem a lot better.
Spider?
Do you think Polukranos is better than Old Growth Troll and Mono Green Devotion? Like, in, like, Pioneer or whatever? No.
Actually, I think it could be I think it's going to go in a deck like that because it's just a solid body. But, like, the fact that Old Growth dies and then actually does what it wants it to do, which is ramp, that's why Old Growth is busted, right?
Old Growth is more consistent. Although Mono Green Devotion can easily flip this. Like, they make so much mana. Like, you can get Wormcoil mode pretty quick if you want to. And that's
you
like...
can get literal Wormcoil.
Wormcoil mode's going to beat people. Like, if you flip this card, that's a lot to slog through. You got to kill it, and you get the tokens. You also have to deal with them. So the backside feels good.
Green Devotion just boards this, right? With whatever room's left for aggro, right? Like red deck.
Yeah, so, I guess that makes sense.
Yeah, and like, by the way, because I hate mono green, as we all know, and the devotion and the misery that is that whole archetype, change the equation is going to be, like, I'm probably just going to main deck that card because of how much I run into an Explorer. It's 1 in a blue, choose 1, counter target spell with mana value 2 or less, or counter target red or green spell with mana value 6 or less. You think about Explorer, it's red deck, Yes, and if you move from best of 3 into best of 1, it's even more likely that you run into red deck and mono green and Cheese Fang, right? Those are like the 3 archetypes. Those are the 3 most popular decks you're going to see in Explorer in best of 1. So I think this counterspell actually going to do a lot of work. This is a very solid hate card. The hate cards coming out of this set are amazing. There's a White Veil of Summer for black and red. Like, there's a lot of really good color hosers here.
Do you think the counterspell's better than Ether or whatever it is?
Ether Gust?
For some Ether Gust, yeah. Would you play that over Ether Gust?
So the problem here is Ether Gust is nice because it also tops the permanent.
You get removal, sort of, yeah.
Yeah, but like this actually just answers it. And I think I could run this and think that it's a respectable enough card to where I can run both of them. Like I would run this potentially as a 1 or 2 of in the main deck.
Okay, I guess it's fine on turn 2, especially if you're on the play. Like being able to hit the cheap stuff of any color is definitely a pretty nice upside. I do really like the white one, the 1 mana. Your stuff gets hexproof, like prevent the damage from red or black sources. That's gonna be a blowout. Like when in standard where there's so many black and red creatures, if your soldiers have like a big board and your opponent swings in with their shield rids and corpse appraisers and blood tithe harvesters, you just play this and like wrath their board and don't lose any of your creatures. It's like ridiculous.
Yeah, this set, so like I guess without running too long, I think there's just a lot. This is a really solid. You asked how good the set is as we talk about it. It is an amazing support set, supporting everything that already exists in this standard.
I think this set looks really good. Richard, we've been rambling on. Any other thoughts on any of this stuff?
Play creatures. I think y'all sleeping on Chrome Shark and Reach. I think so.
I'm not sleeping on it.
Flying is very important now, right? Because you can chip in, and then you need things with flying or Reach to stop that from happening, and then you need removal, and you need protection from removal. So it really centers the game around creatures if these battles are relevant. If the battles are not relevant, then we just go back to old standard. But because you need to actually block, like you can't, use your life total as a resource. It doesn't work when they're flipping a battle, right? So you actually need to have onboard presence and block and not just sit back and rely on a sweeper. So it'll be interesting to see how this shakes out, but yeah, creatures are kind of important now, and Reach and flying, I think people are underestimating. I think it's going to be very crucial if battles are important.
There are now enough enough things to make creatures matter. Creatures have been mattering for a long time, but remember, Planeswalkers, when they got revealed, we were all kind of in the same boat where it's just like, oh, are these good? I don't know. They could be. They do multiple things, but they die real easily. So I don't know. I think battles are going to be a lot better than a lot of people are giving them credit for. They're going to we already are saying some of them are good, but I think they're going to be better than that.
Cool. If you want my hot take on battles on the way out the door, I think battles are going to be good as sorceries that are permanents, but I think that the play pattern of flipping them by attacking them is going to be mostly a flop in 60 card formats. I think it's going to be more fringe than like a primary play pattern.
Not for Richard. Richard, high five. You found something that grew the goif. Bam, right there.
No, please. No. Will the Tarmogoyf try to chip in and flip the battle?
I think the problem was Tarmogoyf was only, a 7/8 before?
Yeah, that was not big enough.
Unironically, there is a point where Tarmogoyf is good again.
And that point is when
now the average
8-9.
goyf is like a 5-6. Right? Maybe 6-7. You're like, that's like almost okay. If my average goyf was like almost Death Shadow, like a 7-8 or an 8-9, then we're actually cooking.
Yeah. Give it another few sets, and we'll have some more card types, and goyf will be good. Keep making card types.
Just power creep the tribal. Give me tribal. I don't know. Give me a good one. A good tribal burn, and then we're good to go. We just need a little oomph to that, like a tribal fatal push. There we go. Like deal 8 damage to any creature.
You did. It's also Invasion of Tarkir. Yeah. That's a battle. It's cheap. It shocks. That's Goy friendly. That is literally Goy friendly right there.
Anyway, I think that brings us to the end of episode 427 of the Goldfish Podcast. Richard, we didn't get to fish mail, but we will in the future. If people want to send in messages, how should they do that?
All right, if you have questions, send them to @MTGGoldfish with the hashtag MTGFishmail, and we'll get to your questions on air.
And if y'all are watching this, I'd love to hear what you think about battles. They're so tricky and interesting to figure out. They're so different. So if you're someplace where there's comments, leave your comment. Let us know what your opinion is of this set, of these battles, what you're looking forward to. So anyway, that brings us to the end of episode 427. Richard and Crib, thanks for hanging out. Thanks to everyone for listening. Thanks to Card Conduit for supporting the show. And we'll be back next week to talk the rest of March of the Machines and whatever else goes on in the world of Magic. So until then, have a great week, everyone. And this is the crew signing out.